What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. Welcome to Splash City. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. This is pretty much the only team left in the postseason that I have not checked in with for a while. We've talked about the Clippers, Suns, and Hawks more recently, but the Bucks, I haven't really had much to say about them over the past couple of weeks, and that's, for a couple of reasons. I can't really figure this team out, and we'll get into it. But yeah, they just had a big win last night to go up 2-1 against the Hawks in that Eastern Conference Finals series, so they've got a really good shot of going to the finals, and they got a good shot at the title. So let's get into the Milwaukee Bucks. So before I left on my trip a couple of weeks ago, I basically had the Bucks left for dead because they were coming off of, losing by like almost 50 points to the Nets, and I think that was game 2. They were down 2-0 and just not looking great. They barely win that game 3 against Brooklyn, but it was really, really ugly, and they managed to pull that victory out. However, they did not end up losing that series like I had anticipated them to. Obviously the Nets dealt with some injuries and stuff like that, but the Bucks capitalized on their opportunity and managed to advance and won that in a Game 7 thriller there. So Giannis and the Bucks are in a position now where they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're up against the Hawks, who are, obviously a good team and they deserve to be there, but are probably a little bit overmatched, maybe, overachieving a little bit, at least based on what their roster might tell you. Now, the Hawks are no pushover, and I still think they can beat Milwaukee, but getting that victory, Game 3 in Atlanta, was pretty huge for this series here, for the Bucks there. So we'll see how that one ends up going, but they're in a position now where they are the favorite to advance to the NBA Finals, and depending on who they end up going against, looking like it's going to be the Suns right now, they could have a legitimate shot at winning their first ring in a very long time. And a lot of these players on this roster, for Giannis and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, that would certainly be huge for their careers. So there's a lot at stake for the Bucks over the next couple of weeks. So I think the reason that I have not had much to say about the Bucks over the last little while is because to me this feels like it's a similar Bucks team to last year. I just can't quite put my finger on why they're better, and maybe it's just the easier path in the postseason and some of their role players stepping up, and maybe Drew Holiday is one of those reasons. But it feels to me like the vibe of this team is very similar to the one that not only lost to Miami in the bubble last year, but also the one that lost to the Raptors in, the conference finals a couple of years ago. It just has a similar feel to some of their previous playoff runs. So I keep feeling like eventually they're going to let us down. And that is it's a lot to do with Budenholzer, and it's a lot to do with a couple of the players on this team kind of being really inconsistent. And like I said, they lost by 50 to the Nets in Game 2. This is a very inconsistent team. Sometimes the offense looks incredibly stagnant. The defense, their defensive schemes kind of get exploited a little bit, and players are able to take advantage. So like some games they just don't look great at all, but some nights they look awesome, like Game 2 against the Hawks when they blew them out. It just felt like everything was clicking for them. And so Milwaukee has done enough to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they might end up doing enough to get to the finals, but you have to feel like at some point they might run into an opponent that is just well executing on a lot of the little things, and that would mean that the Bucks are in trouble, because the Bucks get by right now on just having a lot of talent. They have a lot of veterans who are smart, been around the league a long time, know how to play the game, so they're winning almost in spite of their coaching and in spite of some of their players being a little bit more inexperienced. So that's kind of what it feels like for them right now. I just can't really put my finger on exactly like what this team's ceiling is, because it's just, they have the vibe of a team that could be an early playoff exit, but they also have the vibe of a team who, has now been through a couple of tough postseason losses and feels like they're about ready to break through. So this is a flawed team, but so are the other teams that are left, right? The nature of this postseason right now is that there's 4 teams left alive in the NBA playoffs, and all of them have clear problems with their roster construction, with the players on the floor. Not all of them are perfectly coached, and so you're kind of looking at the 4 that are left and just saying, well, it's going to be whoever ends up being the healthiest, and whichever team is able to execute the best down the stretch, and that could very well be Milwaukee. It could very well be one of the other 4, but you don't have to be perfect to win the title this year, and that's an interesting thing, because we're used to kind of super teams, being able to come in and just win every year and kind of crush people with a lot of superstars and stuff like that. But the 4 teams that are left this year, specifically Milwaukee, I think are all, they're flawed rosters. All 4 of them are. but that does, they can still win it because that's just how it goes. And the other thing that is weird to me about the Bucks is that Giannis is their best player, right? We know this. He's a 2-time MVP. He's incredible. Only 26 years old. We know what Giannis can do, right? And we know how good he is. But he himself is clearly a very flawed player. The jump shot's not all the way there. We know about the free throw struggles this playoffs, with the 10-second violations and stuff like that, and him, missing a lot of them. And there was a clip of him talking about it at practice today about how he's used to, there's only up from here for him, right? Which is true. And Giannis is, obviously a super likable guy, but he has some flaws as a basketball player, right? And a lot of those flaws preclude him from being the go-to guy for the Bucks when the game is on the line, because typically what teams are going to do is keep you away from the rim as much as possible, obviously, because a shot at the basket is the most efficient shot, and if you're down 2 or down 1 or whatever, that's the thing you want to take away. So they're really going to try hard to stop that, and so Giannis is not going to be able to be super effective, because typically when you're taking a game-tying or a game-winning jump shot or down the stretch of a really close game, it's going to be a jumper. It's not going to be like at the rim most of the time, because if it's at the rim, then it was a defensive breakdown, right? So Giannis is not as effective when it comes down the stretch of close games. And so the Bucks turn to Chris Middleton in those situations because he's the best guy on the team in terms of creating his own shot off the dribble, getting himself open, and creating for himself, right? So Middleton's the guy who they go to, and he's kind of hot and cold in those scenarios. Tonight he was super hot, coming down the stretch, had like 20 points in the fourth quarter, something like that, and really closed that game out for them. And so that's the other weird thing about this team, where Giannis is the best player, but he's not necessarily the closer for them. I mean, some nights he can be, but not necessarily every night. And Middleton is a guy who's sort of up and down. So if Middleton is playing well and he's on, then the Bucks are tough to beat. But other than that, you can clearly see the offense get a little bit stagnant and kind of slow down a little bit and pick the wrong shots to take and just not look good overall. So that kind of worries me about them when it comes to the rest of the series against the Hawks or a potential finals matchup against either Phoenix or the Clippers. So I don't know. Can the Bucks win the title? Yeah, they can. They totally can. With the 4 teams that are left, they can definitely be one to take advantage of this unique year and come out with their first ring in a very long time. Personally, I've said this over the past couple of weeks, I'm still going to gravitate towards Phoenix. I think they're the best team left, and they've proven to me that they can execute consistently in close game scenarios, and that's the one thing that I think the Bucks are lacking personally. But I would pick Milwaukee to advance to the finals at this point, especially after getting that pivotal Game 3 in Atlanta, going up 2-1. They're looking like they're in a good spot to take the series. Obviously, the Hawks don't quit, and they could very well come back and win this one. But I think the Bucks are most likely going to end up losing in the NBA Finals. That's my personal pick at the moment. And that would have been, that's a successful season for them. It will be a little disappointing if they can't take advantage of this opportunity, because this is their best chance at winning the whole thing, since Giannis has had his rise as an MVP player, and there's not really anything standing in their way except for themselves. So if the Bucks play really well down the stretch of these playoffs here and win the title, would not shock me. I think it's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't pick it to happen, but I would not necessarily be very surprised if that did indeed coming to pass there. So I think they're the second best team left, and we'll see how the rest of the playoffs go for them. But yeah, that's all I have on the Milwaukee Bucks and their title hopes at the moment. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to. Leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about the Bucks. Are they going to win the series against the Hawks? Are they going to be able to win the NBA Finals this year? Would love to hear your thoughts down below. But yeah, with all that said, I will see you guys in the next one.